Zheng Yu's eyes began to shine with sadness. With a sincere expression, she explained that if Lu Sheng did not return the energy crystals to her, he could get into big trouble. Lu Sheng's attention, who was standing in front of her, fixed on her, and he couldn't help but feel somewhat confused. She lowered her head, closed her eyes, and with a worried tone mentioned that the guide was a being from a martial civilization of a much higher level than the Blue Planet. Despite their being powerful warriors, they were nothing compared to the guides who were powerful level 10 martial warriors. Although Lu Sheng was powerful, this situation deserved to be considered very carefully. Lu Sheng began to think silently for several seconds, then his eyes began to shine calmly. He raised his hand, and with a serene gaze realized that she seemed to know quite a lot about the guide, and about the martial civilization behind them, so he asked if she could tell him more about them. Zheng Yu's eyes widened with love and nervousness. She adjusted the lock of hair, began to gaze toward the ground, and with a smile said it wasn't a big deal, explaining that she had just lived for a long time. Using her finger, she activated the system, mentioning that the more one lived, the more one learned. Just then, a system window appeared in front of them. With an excited gaze, Zheng Yu began to bring her finger closer to the system window. Our boy's attention was fixed on it, and his eyes widened in surprise. The system began to show the Blue Planet and other nearby planets. The Blue Planet was located within the Celestial Serpent star system, being considered a level 1 resource star. The system started zooming out from Earth and focused on a distant planet. The reality was that guides came from a powerful battle planet. Lu Sheng began to observe the system window and with a curious expression, asked if level 1 resource star and battle planet were how the most advanced martial civilizations classified planets. Zheng Yu's eyes began to shine seriously. She explained that Lu Sheng was correct since a planet was classified according to its properties. For example, the Blue Planet contained stellar resources like energy crystals but in limited quantities, so it was classified as a level 1 resource star. The system began to display the battle planet, which was very different from the Blue Planet. It was orange and surrounded by a strange energy. This planet was closer to an exotic beast battlefield, where combats were intense, something similar to the war zones of the Blue Planet, where soldiers had to guard the rifts of underground caverns. The system moved away from the combat planet and began to show beautiful planets in addition to the battle planets and stellar resource planets. There also existed garden planets, which were beautiful with dazzling landscapes but did not contain many resources, and their level of civilization was quite low. These included planets suitable for residents, such as culture planets and even waste planets, like garbage dump planets, among others. Each planet had its own level and purpose, similar to the caste structure of the Brahmins. Lu Sheng's eyes began to shine seriously, and his attention focused on the system, realizing that this was not very different from the society of their planet. Using her finger, Zheng Yu began to navigate through the system window, explaining that in the vastness of the universe, as long as there was life, differences were not so great since, according to what the guide had revealed, any planet had the possibility of transforming into a battle planet. Lu Sheng began to observe the system window and listened to Zheng Yu in silence without interrupting. The eyes of the martial saint began to shine with fear when she revealed that the Blue Planet actually had the potential to become a battle planet. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng's eyes widened in confusion. He turned toward her and with a surprised expression asked her to explain. Zheng Yu began to gaze at the ground, sunk in her thoughts. The system began to show the simulation of when the guide appeared. This being descended into the world through a powerful portal. She explained that the guide came once every 10 years. Besides collecting resources, he also had an important task, monitoring the invasion of mutant beasts on the planet. With a curious gaze, Lu Sheng asked if the entire galaxy was facing the threat of invasion by mutant beasts. Zheng Yu's eyes filled with calmness. She began to point at the system window with her finger and nodded her head, explaining that all civilizations were doing their best to face and mitigate this crisis. After both shared information, our boy's eyes filled with fury, and he let out a sigh. The pressure on him had eased greatly. As for the mutant beasts, there were more capable people who could take care of that, so he no longer had to be called savior. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. With his current abilities, all he had to do was manage their planet well, constantly strengthening mid- and low-level forces. With this alone, he would already be fulfilling his duty in a meaningful way. Jungyu began to observe the landscape, and her eyes filled with serenity. With a serious gaze, she explained that according to what the guide had said, the blue planet would eventually become a true battle planet. At that moment, humanity would no longer be able to inhabit the planet, but for that there were still many years left. Lu Zheng began to gaze toward the ground and did not say a single word. Jungyu intertwined her hands, closed her eyes, and with a smile admitted that they were going to be able to grow old peacefully in this era of peace. Upon hearing this, Lu Zheng's eyes widened in surprise and his jaw dropped in shock. He began to stare fixedly at the martial saint with an angry gaze and revealed that making hasty promises was a great curse. Jungyu's eyes widened in surprise. She put her hand over her mouth, began to observe Lu Zheng, and couldn't help but feel somewhat confused. Lu Zheng closed his eyes, and with a calm expression decided not to talk about it anymore and asked if she had never thought about leaving the blue planet. Jungyu removed her hand from her mouth and her attention focused on Lu Zheng, making her eyes fill with curiosity. She put her hand over her chest and began to observe the sky. With a sincere gaze, she admitted that she did not want to leave this planet. The only thing she wanted in this life was a family and to live in peace. For her, the martial path was too long and arduous, and although she longed to reach the top, it was nothing more than a simple dream. Lu Zheng turned toward her and began to observe her in silence with a surprised gaze. The sky was clear and the birds were flying around the area. She knew that becoming a martial saint was her limit. She had spent much of her life fighting for the martial path, but it was now time to dedicate time to doing the things she wanted to do. She extended her hand toward the lake, turned toward Lu Zheng, and with a worried expression mentioned that if he wanted to leave the blue planet, then he should not anger the guide. Whether it was the path to ascend to level 10 or to leave this planet, everything was in the hands of the guide. Since with current technology they were still far from being able to create a ship capable of traveling through space. Lu Zheng began contemplating the lake in silence. Then he extended his hand toward her and his eyes filled with seriousness. He knew that she was not wrong, since leaving the planet was not as simple as just improving strength. Without technological advances they could not take this step. He wasn't sure about level 10 warriors, but knew that being level 9 wasn't enough for one's body to become strong in stellar space. He and Jungyu started walking across the bridge with a determined expression. Our boy asked her not to worry since he was clear about what to do. Jungyu decided not to insist anymore, and decided to tell him about the advanced technology of the guide and his people like the spaceships. The two continued talking, and along the way Jungyu closed her eyes and while blushing, with a kind smile asked if Lu Zheng didn't want to reconsider the matter of Lin Wanwan. Upon hearing this, our boy's eyes widened in surprise and he couldn't help but blush. Lu Zheng began touching his head, looked away and with a nervous expression said that he had to talk it over with Snowy to see if she agreed. Lu Zheng began to imagine himself sitting and surrounded by girls hugging him. Among them were Snowy and Lin Wanwan. If he was forced, maybe he could consider marrying some more women. But then he dismissed the idea and decided to continue with monogamy since he couldn't bear to see other girls cry. A few days later, Lu Zheng was invited to eat. Snowy and the others organized a big dinner with all kinds of dishes. During the meal, all of Lu Zheng's old acquaintances appeared. Among them were Lin Wanwan, Dong Shengyi, and many more. While Dong Shengyi was sitting enjoying the food, Lu Zheng appeared and placed his hands on his shoulders. Noticing this, Dong Shengyi couldn't help getting nervous while on the other hand Lin Wanwan couldn't contain her laughter. Once night fell, Lu Zheng returned to his mansion, and his eyes widened in fear, leaving him in shock. Lu Zheng focused and appeared in the dream space. With a serene gaze he touched the air, making several red system windows appear. The system began to display information. Lu Zheng crossed his arms and fixed his attention on it, causing his eyes to fill with confusion. He could not believe that there was still no information about outer space. He began to read carefully, and by comparing Lin Zhengyi's information with the systems, He quickly realized that everything appearing in the system was false. For him this was strange since his personal access remained limited to level 10. Lu Zheng put his hand on his chin, closed his eyes, and began to ponder. He came to the conclusion that only by reaching true level 9 or officially defeating a level 10 warrior could he increase his permissions to level 11. According to the system information, Lu Zheng was going to meet the guide in October, and during the battle he was going to receive 3 blows, but he was not going to die, and 3 years later he was going to ascend to level 9. Lu Zheng's attention focused on that, and his eyes widened in surprise. For him the system's prediction was interesting. His current strength still had a big gap with that of the guide, and the only sure thing was that he was not going to die during the battle. Lu Zheng crossed his arms and a smile spread across his face. His eyes began to shine with excitement since this was exactly what he wanted. The guide's strength was more than enough to kill him, but he wasn't going to die. During the battle he would have just enough pressure needed to push forward and surpass himself. Using his finger, Lu Zheng touched the system window. He decided to keep reading, but then something caught his attention. Making his eyes widen in surprise and confusion, the system window became enormous, revealing that 5 years later Lu Zheng was going to die during the War of Destruction of the Blue Planet at the age of 28. Our boy clenched his fists tightly and began to ponder in silence, not knowing what was happening. His eyes widened in surprise and fear. He could not believe that he was going to die again, and this time not even the Blue Planet was going to be saved, leaving him in shock. Lu Zheng panicked, and with a worried expression, began to navigate through the system windows. The information had not changed again. Realizing that this was the most probable future based on data collected by Dreamspace, he was sure that something must have happened, something he had overlooked, some bald data. With a gaze full of fear, Lu Zheng began to imagine the guide. He thought clearly, realizing that the entire Blue Planet was going to be destroyed, and not even after breaking through to Martial Master level 9 could he stop it, and a level 10 would not be capable of that either. Only an existence of level 11 or higher. Lu Zheng's eyes widened in fear when he thought that this existence could come from a rift that was on the planet. With a furious gaze, Lu Zheng began to imagine had the powerful being he had encountered while at the bottom of the sea. He knew that if that being came out of the abyss, then the destruction of the Blue Planet would be possible. Although this world was plagued with crises, nothing was impossible. Lu Zheng stomped the ground forcefully, creating small cracks. According to him, there was no way to confirm what had destroyed the Blue Planet. Our boy put his hands on his head and started going crazy, his eyes filled with guilt. Since according to him, if Lin Zhengyu hadn't told him anything, maybe this crisis wouldn't have broken out. Lu Zheng crossed his arms, and with a confused gaze he began to look at the ground. He remembered that she had said that she wanted to die of old age in times of peace, and by night they already had a world apocalypse. According to him, she had to carry the guilt. Lu Zheng's eyes widened with rage, causing him to clench his teeth tightly. He thought there could still be a way out since after all, he still had 8 years until 28, and 8 years were enough. What seemed like a total disaster. In 8 years maybe he could solve it with a simple wave of the hand. Lu Zheng stomped on the ground and memories of his loved ones came to his mind. He began to gaze at the ground and thought that in the worst-case scenario, if he couldn't win, at least he could escape, and the hardest part was going to be taking all his loved ones away from the blue star. The sun rose. Lu Zheng clenched his fists tightly, because he knew he couldn't calmly abandon the countless millions of compatriots of the blue star. His eyes began to shine with determination and his attention fixed on the sun. He knew that he had to become stronger and improve quickly. He had to be strong enough to change everything. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,